All right. Algebra 2, Chapter 2, Section 1, Relations and Functions. Now, you probably can remember that we have a thing called a function, which is when you have a relationship between two variables, usually. That's how we start out. And for each input, there's exactly one output. So if you plug in a 2, you're always going to get 5, say, or whatever number you always get. You always get that when you get a 2. What made it not a function is when you'd plug in a 2, and sometimes you'd get a 5, and sometimes you'd get a negative 5, say. Something like the square root of a number, because it can both return positive and negative results. So, function is when you just get one output for each input, and a non-function is the opposite of that. You get more than one output for any of the inputs. It only has to happen once, too. All right. Now we're going to add in some more terms there. One-to-one functions have inputs with unique outputs, which means you might have a function that gives, say, 2 goes to 5 and 3 goes to 4. That means 5 and 4 are never going to be used again by any other number. It means if I got a 4, I know I'm going to get a 3 for the input. So it's kind of like function but in reverse. An important thing to note is maybe there's no number that goes to 6 in the range. Like 1 doesn't go to 6. I don't know. There's just the big thing about it is that each element of the range is only found once, but it doesn't have to. Not everything has to be hit. That's where the next one comes in. That's onto functions. That is when every element of the range gets hit. So, for example, if the entire range is the y-axis, if I draw a quadratic, this is not onto, because there's all of these y-coordinates down below it that never got hit. They're not covered by the function. So that's the idea of the of onto, is all the elements of the range are covered. And we've got some little drawings down below here where you can take a look at that as well. Oh, of course my guy's not going to scroll down. All right. And it's okay if things repeat with the ontos. Maybe the x squared is an onto. I'll have to think about that one. It's very early in the morning, but I'm sure we'll figure it out here. You can see for 1-to-1, it's going to each one, but it's okay that it misses that one value. Here, it's okay that 3 and 4 both go to C. Sometimes you get functions that are 1-to-1 and onto, and those are the pretty nice functions. They just line everything up nice and straight. All right. So, domain and range. State the domain and range of each function, then determine whether the relation is a function. If it is a function, determine if it is 1-to-1, onto, both, or neither. So I'm going to set this up like a map because that's how my examples went. So I've got we'll call them just the x's for the input. Let's see here. I've got -6, -5, -3, -1, and 6. And y for my outputs, I have -9. Well, how about -1, -9, -7, +7, and -9. You see, right now when I'm writing this out, I realize I wrote -9 twice. I don't actually write want to write -9 twice. I only want to write it one time. So let's draw some arrows here. 6 goes to -1, 5 goes to -9, 3 goes to -7, -1 goes to +7, and 6 goes to -9, so it goes back up there. So let's take a look here. Do each of the elements get their own output? No, unfortunately, 6 and -5 both have the same output, so it's not 1-to-1. Are all the elements in the range covered? Yes. So it is onto. So I could describe this onto, but not 1-to-1. Let me just write that out so it doesn't look like an H. Oh, and for each input, there's exactly one output. Yes. Yes. This is a function. I probably should have actually started out with this line here, because if it's not a function, then it can't be onto. Part B. Here, what I'm looking for when it's in table format, are there any repeated inputs? 2, oh, so there's another 2 there. Then I've got the repeated inputs of the -1s. All right. Now let's check their outputs. -2 and +2. Those two don't match. So immediately that tells me this is not a function. If you didn't see that one with the 2's there, you could have seen that you had the same problem with the -1s. So this one is definitely not a function.